So Kanyadi, you are mute.
Welcome back to the second session of the day. Honorable Principal, Nirmala College, Ranchi, and patron of the 5-day skill development program in English language, Dr. Sister Jyoti, respected Vice Principal, Sister Shobha, and our esteemed resource person for this program, Professor M.E. Veda Sharan, Department of English as Second Language Studies, School of English Language Education, the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, Telangana. CP Coordinator and Head of the Department Geography, Dr. Devjani Roy, my dear colleagues and participants. Welcome back to session 6 of day 3 of this 5-day skill development program in English language, organized by the CP Committee and Department of English, Nirmala College, Ranchi, with academic support from mentors from the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, sponsored under the UGC CP scheme. The sessions till now have been highly captivating, bringing forth several nuances of English that we otherwise tend to ignore or we didn't know at all. We now move into another such enthralling session to hone our reading skills with Professor M.E. Veda Sharan. Be attentive, dear participants, throughout the session, as this session would also hold key questions for your test tomorrow. At the end of the session, do fill your and submit your feedback attendance form. Do not forget that. And we have a lot to learn, so without much ado, seeking the permission of the chair to move ahead, I now request our esteemed resource person for the session, Professor M.E. Veda Sharan, to begin his deliberation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning once again to all of you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Loud and clear.
Oh, great. Can we just share the screen for the poem, ma'am? Stopping by woods on a snowy evening.
Yes, sir. I request Prachi ma'am to share the screen.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, absolutely, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. And I thought we could do this poem because it's a very familiar one and everybody's read this poem. So if you have not, just please take a minute and go through the whole thing. Can you? Okay, would anybody like to comment on this? I'm sure we've read this poem before.
So since we have a little bit of time lag with the YouTube, so
Okay,
we have to wait for their responses to come in.
excellent. Okay.
Thank you, sir. We have some responses coming in, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Ramsha from YouTube says that she's read this poem in Standard 9.
Okay. Do they remember anything of it? What exactly happens in this poem?
Anshu says, sir, that it describes about winter season.
Okay. Is it a walk or is he riding a horse? Okay. Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
Sir, Ranu Sharma says that in this poem, the speaker talks about isolation and loneliness,
Uh-huh.
whereas
Okay.
Priyanka, Nitesh, and Shivashri say that he's riding a horse.
Okay.
Shubhra Karan, Kia Bishwas also reiterated by saying that he rides a horse.
Okay. Right. Um, let's begin a closer look at this poem now. Can we just move to the second slide here if you have it there? Right. Um, let's take an overall view of what poetry is. Okay. Now, all of you have names that was chosen by your parents with so much of trouble, care, love. Each of you would have a beautiful name, I'm sure, which represent your parents' ideals and ideas that of how you should grow up. Yep. So just think about it for a minute. What does your name mean? And why did your parents give you that name? Okay. Yep. So um, there are some ideas and ideals behind the name that your parents chose for you. And when we come to language, we find that there are similar high ideas and ideals about it. Now, if you look at the word verse, it's a word from agriculture. It has one or two meanings. The word verse means a line that is drawn in the field by the plow. You see, when the plow moves, when the oxen pull the plow, there's a line that is drawn in the field. This line, as you know, is called a furrow, 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 and it moves from one end of the field to the other end. and then it turns back. Now, this is the meaning when you say you reverse a car, that is, you come back on the same line or road as you went in. This is to reverse. So, verse basically means a line. Literally, it means a turning over. So, you will see that there are two kinds of turning happening here. One turn is that the plow goes to the end of the field and then comes back. There's another kind of turning that happens when the plow goes into the soil and turns the inside soil outside. That's another turn as the plow goes inside. So you will see that the idea of poetry is connected with agriculture, of fertilizing the soil, and that is how we live when the soil produces food for us. So our life depends on that in more ways than we can imagine. And poetry is seen as being equally important in our lives. And that is why in English we call it verse. It is a line made by the plow in the field. And of course, in poetry, it is a line that you write on the page and you turn before you reach the end of the page and you come back to where you began. And this is verse. Poetry or a poem comes from the Greek word poiein, which means to create. You create something that is not there in nature before. So the poet is a creator. And there were other ideas about the poet. One of them is Vetis, V-A-T-E-S, Vetis. Vetis was a prophet who could look into the future and say what's going to happen. What sort of ideas do we have about a poet in our culture? How do we look at the poet or kavi as we call him in our culture? What does a poet do? How many of you write poetry? Any answers, please? Okay, poet frames emotions into words. That's fine. Yes. Okay, a lot of creativity. Fine. Okay, try to bring nature, not only nature, but yeah, but human nature as well. Not just the beauty of nature, but all kinds of nature. Okay, stanza, fine. Very well. Okay, now that we have seen, yes, there is uh, a lot of things that poets do, yes, showing life as it is. Now look at this poem here again. We look at the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme, as you know, is how the lines rhyme. So if you look at the first stanza, the word stanza is an Italian word which means, okay, like, means you're stopping. So and once you finish reading a stanza, you stop there. Okay, use this nature, fine. Now look at this here. The first line with no, the O sound. Second line is, and the third line is snow. It has the O sound here at the end. So we will call it A. Whenever we come to the O sound, you'll say A, no, the, and snow. But here, the third line does not rhyme with lines 1, 2, and 4. It rhymes with lines 1.
So we are unable to hear you. Can you hear us, sir? We are unable to hear you, sir.
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay, so I'll just repeat what I've been saying a little while ago. So no, though, and snow have the same sound, so we will call it A. Here is a different sound. You will see that line 3 does not rhyme with lines 1, 2, and 4, but it rhymes with lines 1, 2, and 4 of the next stanza. Here, queer, near, and ear. Did we notice that? And then you will see that line 3 of the second stanza does not rhyme with lines 1, 2, and 4. It rhymes with lines 1, 2, and 4 of the next stanza here. As lake, shake, mistake, and flake. Yeah, that's right, ma'am. And then we have sweep here in the third line. It doesn't rhyme with the other 3 lines, but it rhymes with all the 4 lines of the next stanza. Did anybody notice this rhyme scheme before? Do you think it's a very unusual rhyme scheme? Okay. So, right. For Robert Frost, the rhyme was something very important. He once said that writing a poem without rhyme is like playing tennis without a net. Do you think it's interesting to play tennis without a net? That's how important it was for him to. Oh, you think it's interesting to play tennis without a net? Most people would find it very boring indeed. Okay. Now, how many stanzas does this poem have? So for Frost, it has to be there. Yes, 4 stanzas, that's right. Yes. Then we have seen how the stanzas rhyme. Now we can look at the syntax of the poem. The syntax is the sequence of words in a sentence. As you know, in English, we have a fixed syntax. The syntax is a sequence of words. For we have the subject, verb, object, which is the basic pattern in the English sentence. The subject comes first. It is followed by the verb. It's called the syntax of words. Now you can look at the first sentence here. Whose woods these? I think the usual syntax here. How to say this? Woods these? You know. I would say I think I know whose woods these are.
Sir, we can't hear you again. Can you hear us, sir?
With the internet.
I think so, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Let us try this again.
So I think whatever you were trying to say to the students, they weren't able to hear you properly. So can you just repeat it once again, especially our YouTube students?
In poetry, sometimes rarely changes that. It's the most conversational kind of thing. So normally we would say, I think I know whose woods these are. But Frost writes, whose woods these are, I think I know. Uh, any reason for writing it like that? One reason would be that he is trying to highlight the person who is there, who owns the wood, and that's why this person is mentioned first. This is one way of highlighting ideas in Indian first. A good way of learning how to speak. You need to emphasize or show whose woods these are instead of saying, I think I know whose woods these are. He highlights this idea by saying, oh, are you not clear? Is it clear now?
So at times in intervals it's breaking and your screen is getting frozen. So can I request you to shift to some other network if you have another alternative one?
My Wi-Fi is not working, ma'am. This is running on data.
Okay, okay. I do understand, sir. So I'll just prompt in whenever we are not able to hear you, you're not audible. Right now it's okay.
Yeah, sure. Please do, ma'am. So when you speak or lunch, either first or last, and here Frost emphasizes so that he uh, directs our focus towards this guy who is not there on the scene by mentioning him first. Whose woods these are? I think I know. Right. So we will also look at another aspect of this poetry here, what we call texture. A texture of a cloth, you know very well. You know that a cloth is made of vertical and horizontal threads, which are called the warp and the woof. These threads intersect. They go through
Sir, I'm sorry, your voice is breaking. May I
each
request you to switch on only audio mode?
other because of
Sir, can you hear me?
that thing we call a shuttle, which darkness. Okay, ma'am.
Sir,
Yeah, I can hear you.
sorry to
Is it better
interrupt,
now?
sir. This is better. You can be on audio mode and switch off your video. I think that will take care of
Yeah,
your
I'll switch
network.
off the video now. I'll switch off the
Yes.
video.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Is
sir.
it better now?
Yes, sir. Better. Much better.
Okay, fine. So I was talking about this idea called texture. How words are arranged there. I think Dr. Reti was talking about this in the morning. Could you look at the sounds in the first line, which are repeated? If you say it aloud, you can find what those words are. Sounds are. Do we find the S sound repeated in the first line? How many S sounds do you find? Can you identify them? There are four sounds. Three sounds. Okay. These are whose, and then woods, these, and think. You write TH, but it's almost like think there. The S sound is repeated here. So when we repeat a consonant sound, it is called, anybody? Yeah, that's right. I think there are four, Richa. There are four sounds, I think. Four times S is repeated. This is called alliteration, as you know. Alliteration is the repetition of consonantal sounds. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. And okay, so yeah, any other line that has a repetition of consonantal sounds or vowel sounds? The think, the fourth sound is think, almost like S, think. It's something between S and the. It's not exactly think as we say in our languages. It is think. Your phonetics teacher will explain that to you. It's when the tip of your tongue gets between your teeth and you say think. Right. So you can do this exercise a little later about how these sounds are repeated here in this poem. This is the alliteration and the assonance. The assonance is where the vowel sounds are repeated, like in the second line of the second stanza, to stop without a farmhouse. The O sound is repeated here. That is an example of right. Now, technically speaking, people say summary for a poem because if you can say something in prose, then why are you saying it in poetry? Which is, I think, a very legitimate question to ask. Now, what happens in poetry is that the theme and the form, the idea and the rhyme, for example, are united together and you cannot separate them. This is the quality of a great poem, where you cannot separate the idea and the form in which it is written. If you do that, then you'll be doing a lot of damage to the poem there. Okay, so any other instances of alliteration that you can find here? Alliteration and assonance. First line of the third stanza. Yeah, dark and deep. Yes. What happens in the first line of the third stanza? What sound is repeated here? Or sounds? E sounds. Okay. Where are the E sounds, please? he gives his harness bells a shake. Yes. Yes. Is the H sound also repeated there? Yes. Yes. This is how the poem becomes musical. It becomes a musical experience. Yeah. So maybe when you write poetry, you should try to write like this. Anyways, yeah. Okay. We'll come back to the idea of a metaphor a little later. But many people say that a small poem like this operates on binaries. Binaries are two opposite ideas that come together. Can you identify some binaries here? I'll give you one example. There is a presence and there's an absence. The poet is present, but his friend, the owner of the woods, is absent. That's a binary, opposites coming together. In most small poems, you find that these opposites are the subject matter of the poem. So the more binaries you find, the deeper your understanding of the poem will be. Could you take a look at this and say what are the other binaries that you can find? There is, anyone can say that? Silence and sounds? What are the presences and the absences here? Any presence and absence that you can locate? A binary is where two opposites come together. Like in the computer, we have 0 and 1, which is a binary. And in a poem, we have opposites. Like the poet is present at the woods, but the owner of the woods is not there. So you could say in one way that the poet enjoys the beauty of nature. As the woods fill up with snow, he admires the view. But maybe the owner is a businessman who's more interested in money than in the beauty of nature. You could have any number of speculations and guesswork about that. But the idea here is that the poet is there, but his friend is not there. So there's a contrast between the poet and his friend. They are binaries. So as a poet, he is, as you have pointed out, sensitive to the beauty of nature. But the owner of the woods only looks at it as a commercial value, as having a commercial value. So any other binaries that you can find here? Okay, lovely and dark, fine. You will find a lot of binaries here. I mean, really, you just can't count how many binaries you have here. Um, yes. Okay, harness bell is making a sound. Okay, go on. That's fine. So why does the horse give its bells a shake? Is frozen like a binary? How would it be a binary? Yeah, it reminds the poet about what should be happening, but what is happening. It normally they keep walking on the cold winter day, but today they are stopping here. That is a binary. What is supposed? Yeah, yes. Okay. What is supposed to happen and what is actually happening? That's another binary. It's a very cold, the coldest day of the year, the darkest evening of the year, and they're supposed to be going home, but they are stopping and admiring the view here. So that's one contrast. Any other that you can? There is the silence and there is the sound, right? The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. What does downy mean? Anyone can? Yes, exactly. What usually happens and what is happening now. Fine. What does downy mean? Anybody? Down refers to the one meaning of down is the soft feathers of a bird. Okay, Jivet. Yes, soft and feathery. That's right. The flake is soft and feathery. It's a very, the snowflake is downy, it's very soft and easy wind. He is mimicking the sound of the wind here through the word easy, how it flows smoothly. Yes, covered with, that's fine. So of easy wind and downy flake, right? A lot of example of alliteration and assonance here. You can enjoy the poem by looking at these things, by enjoying the sounds of it. Okay. Yes. Any other thing that you'd like to point out, please? Okay, fine. Like cotton or silk and silky at the same time. Easy wind. Easy wind is the wind that is flowing very smoothly and fast. Yep. Fine. Okay, let's finish off some of the easy things first. Um, is there a moral to this? Yes, he has miles to go. Yes. But he's stopping now. He's supposed to be moving, but he has stopped. Yeah. So you can explore these binaries as you go along. And that is in for a short poem, not for long poems. That is the basic thing that happens there. Uh, yeah, please continue. If you are finished with the binaries, now you can come back to them later. Yes, yes, that's correct. What he has to do and what he's doing now. He's enjoying the beauty of nature, but he has responsibilities to fulfill. When he says promises to keep, okay. Uh, yes, yes. He has his duties. Fine. If you look at the last two lines here, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Now, these two sleeps are different, right? How are they different? Okay, fine. Overwhelmed by the beauty of nature, that's fine. Yes, the first one is about taking rest at night, and the second one is the more permanent rest, which is death. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, one sleep which makes us strong again, and one sleep from which we never wake up. Yes. So this is an important part of literature, which we call polysemy. I thought I wouldn't discuss this, but anyway, I'll mention this. Polysemy is when a word has multiple meanings. Polysemy. Polysemy is is having multiple meanings. The same word has many different meanings. Right. Now, ma'am, if we go to the next slide, we'll come back to this again. to the thing where he talks about metaphor. A poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom. The next slide, ma'am. Yeah, these are Frost's ideas about poetry. How do you think uh, stopping by woods on a snowy evening justifies the first statement? A poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom. Do you agree with that? Does anybody write poetry here? Do
So there
you
are a few
agree
students
with
on the
this idea about a poem?
so there are a few students on the
What is
YouTube
the
who do
delight and
write
what is
poetry.
the... I'm sorry about this. Okay. Do they have the same idea about poetry as Frost does? So, what is the delight that Frost has, and what is the wisdom that he ends the poem in? Yes, the delightful sight is the thing. And what is the wisdom? I couldn't read that, please. Okay. Ma'am, could you read out these things? Delight is the beauty of nature. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wisdom is the responsibility that one has to. All right.
So do you want me to read them out?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have the whole thing in front of me.
Sure,
I have
I'll
only a
just do
part of
that.
this.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
So Sharika Sinha says that begin with enthusiasm and cherishing nature and end with no time to see as he has a lot to do before rest.
Okay, ma'am.
Uh, there's another one from Shivangi who says the poem begins with the poet's overwhelmed feelings about the woods and ends with him realizing that he has lot of aims in his life and he has to accomplish them.
Okay. Fine. Yeah. So generally, that's how. Do you agree that this is the quality of a great poem? To begin in delight and end in wisdom.
So we have some responses on YouTube. Would you like to hear them, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Yeah, Indu Kumari says that at beginning the poem described the forest and later decided to move on in order to carry his promise.
Okay.
Astha says the delight of stopping at instances in the busy life to admire the beauty of small things, the wisdom that there is a long way to go, many things to do before the life ends.
Okay.
And Janvi says that as when the poet stops in the forest to give himself a rest, but he was mesmerized by the beauty of the forest, and wisdom refers when he was struck by the thought by leaving the beauty and forest as his.
Okay. Fine.
Duty calls him.
Very
Yeah, duty
interesting.
calls.
Yes, ma'am. Now look at the second quotation from Frost. Metaphor is the whole of poetry. Would you agree with that? Now we have metaphors here in the poem itself. The forest is actually he says wood. A wood, as you know, is a small forest. We should be very careful about these poets because a poet like Frost is very choosy about words. They want precision and exactness. A forest is a huge thing, but a wood sometimes people say is a small forest. So what we have here is a wood, and he says the woods are lovely, dark, and deep. That kind of thing there. So what does the wood stand for here? The woods. What does it stand for? It's a metaphor for something that gives us pleasure and something that really attracts us because it's mysterious. Yeah, exactly. So it says it's dark. He says it's dark because you don't know what's inside and it arouses your curiosity, which is why he says the woods are lovely, dark, and deep. So they are inviting you to go inside and find out, explore those things. So the wood becomes a metaphor for all the attractive, beautiful things in our lives. Yes. Yeah, wood stands for dark forest. Yes, yes, exactly. So but the promises are our responsibilities, our duties. Many people say that um, the horse is something like our conscience. It it makes us remember our duties and responsibilities. So it disturbs us by shaking its bells and brings our attention back to our duties from our pleasures. Okay. So what are the other metaphors that you can find in the poem? What does the friend stand for? As we said, he stands for the person who is interested in money and not interested in the beautiful things in life. This guy just wants to make money. He is warm and comfortable at home, but the poet is out here on a very cold, dark evening, observing these things. Right. So, metaphor is the whole of poetry. Uh, yeah, without poetry, there is nothing. Yes. Yes, the promises symbolize responsibility, which is fine. Yeah, the promises that you have made to your people. So, you need to get back there. Sleep again is metaphor. Yes. The hidden aim of life. Okay. All right. So, there's a whole lot of ideas that you can come back to. So, you can see the interplay of the binaries here. The presence, and there are presences and there are absences. The poet's family is absent. They are back home, but the poet is here in front of the woods. As we have seen, the poet's friend is at home, but the poet is here. Okay,
So we have a
they
couple
support.
of them from YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I read them?
Yeah, please.
Arunima writes, the delight of stopping at instances in the busy life to admire the beauty of small things.
Yes,
And Arushi says, and miles to go before I sleep is another example of metaphor.
yes. Okay. Sleep is, yeah, it could be rest, it could be relaxation, not the physical lying down on the bed, but sleep is just about any kind of relaxation, not only closing the eyes and snoring, I suppose, but a whole variety of things. These are metaphorical things. If you want to go into the techniques of it, there is something called the tenor and the vehicle. Tenor refers to the idea, and the vehicle refers to the object through which the idea is explained. So the wood here stands for the idea of the wood is the mystery of life, the beauty of life, and the wood itself is the vehicle through which the mystery and the beauty of life are brought before us. So the idea behind the wood is the mystery, as I said, the mystery and the beauty, and the wood is the tenor, and the wood is the vehicle, and the tenor is the idea that life is beautiful and mysterious, and they're always inviting. So metaphor operates on these two things. There is the idea, and then there is the physical thing through which the idea is expressed. Like, for example, to take a more simple one, we say somebody is a lion,
Sir, we have another from YouTube.
Right on the border, like we've been lying here, we're talking about this. Could you
So
read
we
that?
have, yes, sir. Om Sanjeet Bhagat. He says, sweep of easy wind and downy flake.
Yes. What would that mean to him?
I would request Sanjeet Bhagat to type that. He also reiterates and miles to go before I sleep, but along with that, he gives the other answer. That is sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Most of the students in
Yeah, it's a
YouTube are,
long distance signal.
yes, sir. Most of the students
Yes.
on YouTube are writing miles to go before I sleep.
So remember, okay.
Anybody from Zoom also could answer sir's question. You could unmute yourself and answer the question that sir asked right now. Anybody from Zoom platform? Please unmute and answer. The question wasn't audible. Okay. I would request Prachi ma'am to come in or Janet ma'am to come in and reiterate or just explain the question a little bit in a better manner. Can we have one of you on screen or just on audio? Am I audible?
Yes, Sukanya,
Ye-
but sir's voice was breaking.
I know, but when I read to him this metaphor given by Sanjeet on YouTube, that was, I'll just reiterate it once again.
Yes.
Sanjeet writes another, he was asking for the different metaphors, right? So then he said, sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So I think he must have asked what is the meaning of it or something like that. So can we have any participant coming up on the screen and or on audio and telling us the meaning of it? Achal, we have Achal and we have Abhishek. Yes, Abhishek, can you unmute and say? Antara, can you answer this?
Ma'am,
Yes, yes. Come over, come answer this.
ma'am, if it is about of easy win and downy flake, so there it means that uh, the horse gives a sign that the traveler has made a mistake, and the poet is able to hear other sounds as well, which symbolizes darkness or gloomy, which are the sounds of easy wind and downy flake. Easy wind means the sound of the cold breeze, and downy flake, some similar sounds.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Can you look at the first stanza, lines 3 and 4, where he says, "See and watch." Why do you think he's saying that? What's the difference between see and watch?
see means just see and you can ignore it later. But watch means to analyze something in it and identify it.
Okay, that's interesting. That's correct. So when you say I see a bird outside my window, right, and you say that
Yes.
um, that you watch a movie, what is the difference here between these two words? Yeah, just look at it. Okay, it's also involuntary. It's not a planned action. When you see a bird outside the window, it's not by appointment, but you can say something like, yes, like you say, look, our bus is coming. So look is a deliberate action where you turn around and watch, look out for the bus. Yeah, watch is something that goes on for a long time in a planned way. So also Revati would have told you the difference between hear and listen, similar things. So that's right, see is casual. It's not a planned action. So this is the business of a poet, to use words accurately in a very, very careful manner, as Frost is doing here. Each word is so carefully chosen, and that is the beauty of language, of poetry. It ultimately reflects life. All poetry is about human life. We may talk about animals, we may talk about anything, but in the end, it has to come back to human life. Whatever we may talk about, unless it has a connection with human life, it doesn't mean anything to us. So when you write poetry, of those of you who are poets and those of you who enjoy poetry, you need to look at how the poet is using words with such tremendous accuracy and care. And this is the quality of a great poet. I'm sorry we don't have time to do much. I thought we'd look at a very bad poem called Trees, uh, which we don't have time to analyze. Or maybe some other time we'll take a look at it. Yeah, any other questions that you'd like to ask? We'll do the last slide, ma'am. Can we go to the last slide? Yes, Heraclitus says that it's impossible to jump into the same river twice. Anybody can explain this idea? Yes, please. Um, okay. Yeah, yes, continue, please. Yeah, so what I think Heraclitus means is that, could you read this out? It is impossible to do the same.
Yes, sir. It is impossible to do the same if once done with the same focus and interest. Abhishek. So we have some answers on
Yes,
YouTube also. Can I read them to you?
please, ma'am.
Neha Ghoshal says, see means casually and watch a planned action of something we watch. I don't know what she means by that. Priya says, one mistake can't be repeated. Nishu, just like every day is not the same.
Uh,
Swati says, not to repeat the same
okay,
mistake. And Shruti says, what is
okay,
the, okay,
fine.
this is a question. Yeah. Yeah. So most of them say that one mistake cannot be repeated.
Okay.
Ritika, Neha, they all reiterate the same thing, sir. And Shubhangi says that this quote also has a binary form in positive and also in negative
Yes,
way.
it does. Yeah, it has a binary form. All right. What the writer is, what the philosopher is saying, you can't jump into the same river. The water into yeah, both.
Kanak Kumari comes up with a different view, sir. She says if you face a situation, then again you can't be new to that anymore. And Janvi says that we cannot feel the same feeling twice, original from the same condition, or originating from the same condition, that is. So most of them mean to say that one mistake cannot be repeated twice. Am I audible to you, sir? Shubhra Karan says that the pressure is never the same in a similar situation. And Achal Kumari writes that it can mean that we cannot do the same work again, be it any mistake or any fulfilled work with similar interests and desires. So great answers from participants. Kudos to you that you are participating in such full-fledged manner. Our mentor says that the water in the river has moved on and you have changed. So this is exactly the thing. I request Dr. Janet Andrew-Shaw to throw a little light on this very issue till our mentor is back.
Yes, thank you, Sukanya. As an English teacher, when I teach poems, I I give them this very example. I think many children have read in class 9 when they were doing CBSE, The Road Not Taken, and there's a line from there where he says, "It's impossible to come back to the same road and take it again." This is what Sir means over here when he's talking about Heraclitus. It is impossible to jump into the same river twice. You cannot go into it with the same intention, the same meaning, the same purpose, and be unchanged after coming back from that particular situation.
Ma'am, don't you think this is a big lesson for our life?
Oh, yes,
To
it is a
grow
very
and get
big,
matured. I
yes,
mean,
yes, oh, yes, yes, Sukanya.
it's a very
Thank you.
in-depth, and our students who are facing this age when they are growing and maturing into better and adults. So I think
Exactly.
this is a wonderful
A
poem
very
which
wonderful lesson.
instills in them.
I think Sir has chosen a wonderful poem. And in fact, when he picked
Yeah.
up that particular quotation from Frost, when he said, "Poetry begins in delight and ends in wisdom,"
Yes.
it means that,
Absolutely.
yes, you start reading a poem and you're very happy when you're reading it. It's a delightful poem. And at the end, when you come away from the poem, you have changed and you have learned something from that poem. You're a much wiser person
Absolutely.
than you were when you
Like,
came into that poem.
yes, we have some beautiful answers from Abhishek. Like he says that the same expectation does not remain always.
Exactly.
So it's
Yes.
such a big learning from life itself, and it has been wonderfully woven into words by the poet who has given and instilled such a big maturity in the reader to look at life from a very a deep perspective,
I
to go in
really
deep
hope,
to one's
yes,
own
yes.
heart.
And Dr. Sukanya, I think, if the children have been following this Sir's lesson, I think they will actually now analyze not just poem, because a poem is actually life. They have created
Yes.
something. A poet has created something. And in that
Ma'am, see.
creation, it comes from life.
And see how well the students are taking up. Indu from
I'm so
YT, that is
It
YouTube,
and
she
in
says
fact,
that,
it's in fact, Dr. Sukanya, it is exhilarating for me as an English teacher to realize that children from all other walks of life, other departments are, coming up with such fantastic
absolutely.
interpretations. I'm so
We
so
have
thrilled with
another
this.
fantastic comment here on YouTube. Hindu says that if we have the knowledge at one go about an idea, then we have jumped into another, as there is no end to our journey. Such depth. I'm so
This is
happy that our next generation has such depth of understanding and such,
yes,
they are
yes.
growing. Even I would state that they're growing so much spiritually. I mean, as a person, as a learner.
We tend to dismiss children as children, but then today
Sorry,
it has made
sorry
me
to
realize.
interrupt Janet and Dr. Sukanya. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think Sir is back. Can we allow
Sir is
him
back.
inside?
Oh, great.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, please.
yeah.
It was
Thank
a
you
very
so
nice
much.
discussion going on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I'll give you my 2 penny worth of it.
Thank you, sir. We are happy to have you back.
Yes, sir.
It's my pleasure, ma'am. Yeah, I think the only constant, as people say in our lives, the only thing that's constant is change. The only thing that is permanent is change. And we're always changing. And even when we jump into a river and come back, we are not the same person because so many cells in our body have died and have been replaced. Our experience has changed us. The experience of the water has made us different. When we read a poem in a similar way, when we come back to the poem, it's not the same poem anymore. Our understanding of it has deepened and it has changed. And so I think in every way, in every part of our life, we are continuously changing. Yes, it is about time, Abhishek. It's about time and it's about us, how we change and how we move on in life. And I think in many ways, in small ways, like when we read a poem, as I was saying, our understanding of the poem changes every we come back to it in our own lifetime millions. So it's not the same poem we come back to, just as it is not the same river we jump into the second time. So I must thank you for your time today, and I really enjoyed being with you all. If you have any questions to ask, please go ahead. I'll be most happy to
Sir,
answer.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. The children are, so full of the lesson that you just gave. One child has, she's asking a little bit of reiteration. Shubhra, what can you give examples of tenor and vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. Tenor is the idea.
Okay.
Like, for example, the idea that change happens
Okay.
is the tenor. The vehicle is the river through which this idea is conveyed to us, because the river is always moving, it's always changing. The idea of change is the tenor, and the vehicle is the solid thing that we can touch, feel, and see, which conveys the idea which is there in our minds. The idea in our minds is the tenor,
Okay, sir.
and the solid thing through which this. So change is the idea, the tenor, and the vehicle is the river.
Okay, sir. So Bushra from English Honors, I think she's asking how is the hermeneutic circle applicable in this poem? Because we did it a little bit of it yesterday also.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Yes,
Now, when
yes.
you finish the poem, you go back to the title, and you will see the tense in which Frost frames it, stopping. The present continuous tense, stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Right. Obviously, the poem is in the present tense. He makes it in the present tense, but you know that he's actually remembering the whole thing. When he goes home and writes down the poem, he's actually remembering it. It's in the past, but he makes it in the present tense because he wants us to visualize it as we go. This is a favorite quotes comment. And then experience of stopping by is changes, but so many in our lives, in so many different ways. For example, you could be feeling like watch, but so
Are the students getting what sir is saying? Dr. Sukanya?
I think
think
so, but there is a network issue.
network
And
issue. But
yes,
you know, I
and
got a I got a lovely message from one child. I don't know who this was. That sir has explained it so well that I think we hardly have any questions. And this I think is the biggest tribute for a teacher. That
yes,
this
many of
explanation
them
was
on
so
YouTube have been saying this, that
yes,
there are no questions
no
because
question
the
because sir has
entire
explained it so well. Yes,
yes, yes, very informative, and he has given his total session
yes,
in a very clear manner. And I think he has reached, I mean, touched the heart of the students through in the way he has described the poem, and in such simple and understandable ways that we, being non-English
yes, that's
participants,
it. And in fact, I was just going to touch upon this. You know, when I would be talking to him, that it's not just English poetry. Sir has talked about English poetry, but I think any language that they'll be reading a poem in now, I think the children will be applying these particular aspects and the rules, and they're looking for onomatopoeia or alliteration in those poems also. Sir has explained it so well. I think Sir is
so
back.
we are back with you. Yes,
We're
sir.
back with Sir. Yes.
So there's another question from a student on YouTube. She wants to know, what is the purpose of alliteration?
Yes,
Is
she
it
asked me
used only
also.
for rhyming beauty or enhancing the beauty of the poem?
yes, ma'am, sorry, there's some problem with the internet connection today. Uh, it makes it you remember it more easily. So it's an aid to memory, and there's also a delight in the sound bites, which is a reward in itself. Being musical, the musicality is something that we enjoy very much. So the beauty of poetry is that it teaches us a moral in a very delightful way. Instead of catching us by our neck and say you are bad, you learn these morals, as morality does. So if you go to an ethics class or a moral class, you are collared and you are taught a moral. But poetry delights you, gives you pleasure, and then at the same time it gives you wisdom. Yes, ma'am. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for such a interesting session on poetry. I now request Dr. Janet Andrisha, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Nirmala College, Ranchi, to please thank our mentor for the day.
I think I join everyone in thanking Sir today, because I have had an unmitigated pleasure of listening to you, sir. You've analyzed the skills of reading in the past these days, and I deem it an honor now. Thank you, Sukanya. You have actually, sir, handheld us in this journey of rediscovering the pleasures of reading, and reading in its entirety, not just the metamorphosis of becoming a better reader than the yesterdays that came before, but in analyzing the anatomy of a written work before analyzing that written work itself. And today, I think everyone who heard you will look at a poem through different eyes. They will look for binaries and the melodious alliteration, and hopefully they'll be delighted at first and a little wise after reading that poem. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I thank Dr. Jibjini again today for being the link for us for the largesse of the sponsorship from UGCCPE. And last but not least, but always the first for us, I thank Dr. Susajyoti, our principal and the patron for this program, her verbal and non-verbal support for us, right from her interceding prayers for our any event that comes, and then the support that she gives us in the darkest hours when we are doubting ourselves. Thank you, sister. I give over to Sukanya now, Dr. Sukanya, because she has a very important announcement. Please listen to her with deepest
Thank you.
concentration, girls.
Thank you, Dr. Janet Andrisha. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, I must thank personally and on behalf of the entire committee for choosing such a beautiful poem which has such a depth for life. Thank you. And the students have immensely gathered a lot of insight from it. We look more to your sessions for tomorrow. Dear students, please fill up your forms, attendance come feedback form within 30 minutes. And this session 2 would be included for your test. So till session 3, session 6, day 3, all the sessions, 6 sessions would be included for your test tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your first thing that I would like to say here is that you must secure 50% marks for your certification. So study well. You have your YouTube links. The videos are there, so you can go back, replay the videos, and once again revise, listen to our mentors, and take in, absorb whatever has been left out. So that will be immensely helpful for you. And we will get back tomorrow at sharp 10 a.m. Please log in 10 minutes before so that you do not miss any instructions regarding the test. All the best to all of you, and we look forward to giving certificates to all our students. Winding up for the day. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. Looking forward to your session tomorrow. Another interesting one.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for being with me. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir. I request all the student participants to log off immediately. And all the members of the organizing committee to remain online. Thank you.